Okay, where it is 7:04. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Board of Selectmen for June 15th, 2020. And just a quick notice I have to read. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Chelmsford Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information of the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.chelmsfordma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may also do so by accessing the Chelmsford Telemedia website at www.chelmsfordtv.org. No in-person attendance of members to the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we'll post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And I'm also going to just note to everybody, if you do use the chat box is recorded as part of the public record. If you private chat someone in this meeting, that also is part of the public record. So just keep that in mind. Anything you are typing can also be seen by the public at a later date, if so asked for. So with that, we'll start with our public service announcements. Virginia, want to read that?
Sure. So this is a public notice for the fall 2020 annual town meeting. The town of Chelmsford will convene the 2020 fall town meeting on Monday, October 19th, 2020. Articles to be included on the warrant must be submitted in duplicate to the office of the town manager at 50 Billerica Road prior to 4 p.m. on Monday, August 3rd, 2020. Any articles submitted after that time will not be considered by the selectmen for inclusion on the warrant. Petitioned articles submitted by private citizens must carry the signatures of at least 10 or more certified voters in the town of Chelmsford. For more information, please contact the town manager's office at 978-250-5202.
Thank you. That will then bring us to open session. Is there anybody that would like to address in open session? I don't see anybody chiming in. So I'm just waiting to see if there's anybody typing or coming up. I don't see any. Okay. So we'll start with reports and presentations, and will allow us to do.
Before that,
oh,
Ken.
Yep, sorry, I tend to scroll too quickly here. So committee vacancies, Virginia, do you mind?
Okay, yep. So there is one vacancy on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, one vacancy on the Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee, one vacancy on the Community Action Program Committee, 5 positions on the Council on Aging. The Cultural Council is also accepting members up to 21 total. 1 vacancy on the Energy Conservation Committee, 4 vacancies on the Holiday Decorating Committee, 2 vacancies on the Middlesex Canal Commission. The Parade Committee is accepting applicants. 1 vacancy on the Permanent Building Committee, 1 vacancy on the Personnel Board, 5 vacancies on the Public Celebrations Committee, 1 vacancy on the Recycling Committee, 2 vacancies on the Skate Park Committee, 2 vacancies on the Tree Committee. If you are interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an application that's available on the town website or contact the town manager's office.
Thank you, Virginia. All right, so with that will bring us to reports and presentations. And Lisa, we will start with you.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, thank you.
I think so.
It's great to be back. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to provide another update about the Crossroads. We're making great progress. And perhaps, as you can see from the presentation I've submitted, let me just do a little screen share here. Bear with me a moment. See if I can, oh, I'm disabled from screen sharing.
Hold on, give me 1 second, Lisa. I will turn on your, I actually can't make you a co-host. Which did you want to screen share? Was it the Boston update?
Yeah, so I've provided that in the agenda.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, there's a hyperlink where you can click on my presentation.
Yep.
It's pretty brief. It's really only 3 slides.
Yep, I'll screen share it. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. Great.
Can you see it?
Yep. Perfect. Okay. Yep. Next page. So very exciting news here at 220 Mill Road. If you recall, this was another one of the pending larger projects that were trying to come through a few months ago. So they have begun leasing space in the building. They will be the only owner, only tenant and occupant. Currently, they occupy 85,000 square feet that they're renovating, as you can see, but the building is pretty large, 113,000 square feet. It's been empty for quite a while for various reasons. So this is a really big step for us to start beginning some awareness and some branding and imaging of the Crossroads. This is a very prominent company, life science-based company. So they have an option to purchase in August, which is really very exciting news to have a owner occupant of this scale in the Crossroads, which basically is some permanence to the future directions. So in speaking with Thermo Fisher, they are planning upwards of 40 million into the building, including acquisition, and they're talking pretty large scale renovation, including high bay space and revamping the building for life science needs. So that's a very impressive project coming in. And it goes in line with, we have been pursuing life science. We were talking about the biotech rating of Chelmsford, and this is aligning with a lot of the business elements that we're trying to bring in. This update, as you can see, was just from a few days ago. And I'm sure I'll be coming back a few more times in the future with additional updates as they start implementing their full master plan. With their option to purchase in August, they won't really fully occupy the entire building for some time, but obviously there's a lot of great news to celebrate about it. So I'm pretty proud of this project coming forward into a building that has some physical challenges. It's been neglected. It is not modernized. And so to have this level of investment into the Crossroads, just alone for this project, is really significant and something to promote and celebrate for the Crossroads. So wanted to share that with you this evening. And then more good news coming, next page. So 330 Billerica, we've been talking about a restaurant. We've probably been hearing about some rumblings out there of a restaurant coming. We put the word out very publicly that we were seeking business amenities. We are very excited to be hosting a popular well sought after restaurant will be coming into 330 Billerica Road. We have received documentation to show their commitment to the space, beginning to fit up, ordering restaurant materials and equipment. You can see that the construction is underway on the exterior of the building. We are extending the grant to them for $100,000. As you may know, it's very helpful amount of money. It's a large amount of money, but in the scale of their investment into the building, it's a small incentive for them, but it was enough for Chelmsford to secure this restaurant to come in. I think you'll be very pleased when you hear whom it is, and we are letting the restaurateur and the property owner do a public announcement before we actually share that, but I do want to confirm to the audience and the general public that it is a committed agreement. We do have a proof of the signed lease agreement, and we have agreed to release some of the grant funds to get their project started. So you'll start to probably see even more activity aside from the building renovations coming. And if you recall, the owner, RMR Group of the building, had committed to upgrading the exterior landscaping and really working on an overall plan to uplift the area. They've been talking with me about coordinating marketing ideas and branding ideas. They are on board with partnering with us. So we've already begun some initial conversations about public-private pursuits of some signage and other types of identity to the park, that you're actually in an office park when you're there. So really exciting news coming out. A lot of those elements coming forward that was on the wish list when we had done the site readiness grant. Step one was to land a signature project to bring that in, and we're checking that box off, and also to include business amenities and food. So I'm very excited that this is going to create some momentum, long-awaited momentum, that we can just keep going and accomplish many great things in the coming future. The pandemic set us back a little bit on a timeline, but we are just as strong as we were in pursuing these goals. And I'm feeling very positive and looking forward to getting into the project mode of this. So, and I don't know if there's any questions on that. Not sure if I can provide much more detail. Yeah, thank you. It's been a team effort. You know, as you know, we've been given these updates for a little while, and it's inch by inch, but we're getting there and we're making it happen. So I'm pretty happy for that. And next page. Another smaller announcement, but just important as well, that we were able to finalize the bus shelter. This is to also provide an amenity to the Crossroads area. We do have a bus stop already. I believe there might be 2 bus stops there on the Route 129. This will include a bus shelter, and you can see the DPW has already done very fast work at putting the concrete pad in, prepping the site. The bus shelter has been ordered and arrived. Mr. Dixon had helped coordinate with some of that and the communications and coordination of that. So the bus shelter is here, and the LRTA, the agreement back in the fall, I think it was, that the LRTA will do the installation. So at the moment, their workload is a little bit in different directions, but you should see that bus shelter come in very soon in the next couple weeks. And that will help also as a secondary. It'll help with some of the DCF needs. DCF Department of Children and Families occupies significant space in 2 Omni Way. There's 150 employees in there, along with a lot of visitation for families from the region, and the bus transportation is extremely important. So the bus shelter will help greatly. And I think that's kind of all I've got for this evening. I don't know if there's any questions about anything.
Busy.
We got a lot more things coming behind the scenes that I can't wait to be able to announce more things publicly coming forward.
Great.
On a smaller note, we have a new barber shop in the center of town, which I drove by and was surprised to see that opened. It was a barber shop, and then I guess it closed for a while, and it's now Santana's. I guess they opened Monday, which I went and got a haircut today and met the owner, and nice place, but I was sort of surprised, you know, as I drove by, that you got to see it's all leather chairs, all done up inside. I was like, when did this happen?
Like a nostalgic type of throwback barbershop?
More like Cadillac leather chairs. Like almost movie theater chairs.
Yeah, I really do miss doing ribbon cuttings, and I've tried to think about ways we could do that with social distancing, and it's a little bit complicated, but we can certainly still host ribbon cuttings when it's appropriate and safe and the timeline allows. But I wasn't aware. Was that like last Monday or today?
Last Monday.
Okay. Last Monday.
Yeah, but I swear it was empty one day on a Saturday. I drove by on Monday and there it was. I was like, wow, I don't know how that happened so quickly, but
yeah, it's that expedited permitting process we have.
He had a Chelmsford certificate on the wall and he had 2 different permits. So I don't know how it went so quick, but good for him.
Yeah. Excellent.
That also does lead me, just one other comment on business development in the town. The feedback I've received from the restaurants, from all the departments in town, congratulations, between fire, police, board of health, building department. I was told by at least 3 different restaurant owners that they came in within a day, just zipped right through it, got these places set up, got them back in business. And they said could not have been an easier process with the town. 2 different restaurants said they had friends with, restaurants in other towns, and they're still waiting to get approvals in place. So that made me proud to have the staff that we have that was able to get that started and pull that off.
Yeah, that was some coordination between departments. Christina Bruce did a lot of the heavy lifting for that. She deserves a lot of the credit for that, and just thinking it through so that when you do put it out there, it covers all of the different nuances between the different types of restaurants, the challenges of space, the allowances, and the departments were really just very ready and willing and just wanted to be as helpful in this recovery for businesses as possible. So, it was really a team effort, and I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, I did hear Christina's name in a lot of comments by them. So yes. I agree. She seemed to have been the quarterback of the process.
Yes, absolutely.
So great job.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the agenda. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
So next up, that brings us to Evan, Community Development Director, the RFP for the interchange study.
So good evening. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for taking this item up on your agenda this evening. As you recall, this dates back to last year when we received the grant, and then an internal review process has taken place since then. So most recently, dating back some months ago, Master Planning Committee has reviewed this, the Economic Development Committee, the Planning Board, the Route 40 Study Committee has reviewed it. And last week I did have a Zoom meeting with Virginia Timmons, Select Board member, some very specialized and customized input from Virginia. So I appreciate that as well. So the purpose of this study, similar to Route 129, which dates back 6 years ago, the intent here is for the town to be proactive in its economic development districts. Specifically, this one's related to the 3 interchanges along the Route 3 corridor, not including the Route 129 interchange. So those specifically are Exit 31, which is Chelmsford Street, Route 110, Exit 32, the Drum Hill corridor, and Exit 33, Groton Road, otherwise known as Route 40. And as the RFP outlines, it's a 2-step study. First is to do a physical assessment of the properties on the ground and their characteristics so that we have a good understanding as to what the existing marketplace entails. The second is a market study, and similar to 129, while we didn't do a market study six plus years ago with 129, I think the lesson that we've learned as a town is that towns always need to be forward thinking. And it could be argued that with 129, we may have lost a step as it pertains to where the marketplace was and where it was going. So the intent with this study is to be forward-thinking, 10 to 25 years, ask a market consultant to assist us with a data-driven process related to future markets. A good example for Drum Hill is, what's the future of retail 10 years out? There's a lot of discussion nationally about the future of big box retail, converting to more of a last mile distribution type of business model. So those are items that I think we need to pay particular attention to on our existing economic development corridors. Obviously, when it comes to exit 33, Groton Road, I think the intent there is to provide some baseline information to assist the town in future decision making. All three of these interchanges, the studies, as I mentioned, will result in a physical assessment and a market assessment. Unlike many of our previous consultant processes, this one's slightly different in the sense that the consultant is not envisioned to be working with a dedicated standalone committee. What is envisioned here is that it is an advisory committee made up of some town officials as well as representatives, property owners, and business owners from each of those study areas, and likely for Route 40, some members of the previous Route 40 study committee, and for Drum Hill, dating back almost 10 years.
Like pickles? Do you like pickles? I like pickles. I'm eating them right now.
What is that?
I don't know what.
We good? We good to move forward?
I think we got jumps.
Okay.
So I shut off that microphone anyway, so sorry about that.
Not a problem. So with Drum Hill, about 10 years ago, we had a Drum Hill master plan. So we envision having a member or two from that previous committee also participate in this process. So the RFP outlines the overview. What is the town's reason for undertaking the study? It outlines a series of tasks that the consultant will be asked to participate in. And as I mentioned, there'll be an advisory committee. And then the final step is there'll be a report as well as a presentation. I'll also mention that this total project has a value of $62,000, of which the state grant will cover $50,000, and the remaining $12,000.
What's wrong with pickles, bro? Like, what do you have against pickles?
Is a required state match.
Sorry about that, Evan. Yeah, I think you're all set. We removed them from the room.
Okay. So I know that the draft RFP was submitted in your packet. I know that it's been, as I mentioned, reviewed by a number of committees. It's fairly straightforward. What
the fuck's happening with these hackers?
No.
I
Yeah,
know,
we're getting
right?
hacked, guys.
Am I okay to proceed?
Yep.
Okay, so just to...
As they're doing it, we're removing them, just so you know. So as fast as we can get them off.
Okay.
Anyways.
So on the last page is the estimated timeline. I do anticipate that if the board grants permission to move forward this evening, then that will likely quickly issue the RFP, and sometime in July, we'll likely be back in front of the board, hopefully with a recommended award. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have, or others that have joined the meeting.
Evan, I received a late email from someone who read the document off the agenda and had 4 questions. I thought maybe I could just ask them and let you address them directly.
Sure.
The main question was, why is exit 33 the only one that includes single family homes in the study? And why weren't the single family homes on 110 next to Market Basket and across from the mall included?
Okay. So if you, as part of the agenda item, I also included the 3 study area maps.
Mhm.
So those maps identify the study area based upon existing zoning, primarily commercial and industrial zoning. The exit 33 is obviously a unique situation where there's residential uses as well as residential zoning on one side of the street. But that's the study area. It has to contain both sides of the street. On the other interchanges, the reason that single families were not included adjacent to or across the street from the Kohl's Plaza is that those areas are zoned residential, single family residential. And I'm not aware of any master planning documents or other recent town discussions that contemplate changing any of that. So the simple answer is that it defines a geographic area that's well established.
Okay. The second question was in task 1, you talk about looking at current conditions and previous plans, and there was just a question as to what are those previous plans?
Okay, so certainly the 2010 master plan, as well as the working draft of the 2020 master plan, and then specific to interchanges, obviously the Route 40 study committee report would be provided to the consultant. And for Drum Hill, I mentioned the Drum Hill master plan would also be provided to the consultant.
Okay, and then the last question asked is when you talk about stakeholder involvement in the RFP, and I think you might have addressed this, but the specific question is it especially for an area like Route 40 where you have the residential RC zoned area as part of the study, will you be including residents or will it be just biased toward businesses? There's a question of like, or how are we going to ensure a balanced
Sure.
view?
So as I mentioned, each study area will include property owners, business owners. So for Route 40, it's slightly different than the other interchanges. So we'd likely have a commercial property owner and a residential property owner, likely have an additional member from the previous Route 40 study committee. So I could see that area likely having, 3 representatives who either live in the area or who are very familiar with the area. And as I mentioned, the stakeholder engagement with the consultant is more of an advisory role. I don't envision as you see in the scope, it's not intended to deliberate or discuss or debate future zoning or future redevelopment of an interchange. It's intended to have the consultant provide the data-driven market analysis and have a sounding board, so to speak, from those residents. Once the consultant's process is complete, at a later date, the town will have to decide what it wants to do with this information, if anything, what committees may embrace it and try to move some of the concepts further along.
Thank you. That's all that was asked.
Okay. Any other questions for this evening? No. So, okay.
So any other questions? Nothing? Okay. I don't see anything in the chat box either, Evan.
Okay. So as I mentioned, what I'd like to do with the board's permission is issue the RFP. And as I mentioned, I'll probably give upwards of a 30-day response time. And then similar to all grant awards, we'll be circling back with you for your vote to proceed.
So you want a motion,
So
correct?
Yep.
You want a motion to accept the RFP, right? To accept to put it out there.
Sure. Thank you.
You want to do that, Virginia?
I think you just did, George.
Well, I know, but then you want to
Do we have a
second?
second then?
Sure, I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second, and we'll do it by roll call. All in favor, Pat?
Aye.
Emily? You're muted.
You're
Oh,
controlling
hold
it.
on. It says unmuted. I don't.
It says okay. She said yes.
All right. Yeah, but I'm just worried, George, that
Oh,
I can't.
Yeah,
We can't.
no, I've got control
There you
again. Aye.
Okay. Virginia,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. 5-0. Congratulations, Evan.
All right, thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just to give everybody an update, what happened in Evans, it looked like someone came under a screen name for Lisa Maroney, and it was not her. And then there was another name that came up, and it was 2 different hackers. So Dan was able to get them both removed from the room and shut off. So I apologize that happened, and we tried to deal with it as quick as we could. All right, so next that'll bring us to agenda item 6, North Chelmsford traffic issue in the Olson letter. Let me just go in. I'm going to unmute Susan Olson if I can. Dan, if you have control, you want to get Susan unmuted and screen on if possible? Okay, so she's unmuted. Do we have a video? Susan, Sue, are you with us?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you want us to read the whole letter, or do you want us just to go? How should we approach it? Because the letter is.
Well, it's pretty lengthy.
Yes.
I don't think it's necessary. I think it's been out there for some time that if, people have had a chance to take a look at it, or maybe make some comments on some of the questions that I had asked or suggestions that we made.
All right. So why don't I start with, go ahead, Virginia.
I was just going to suggest that would it be appropriate, maybe not read them all, but just go through point by point and give her a quick status.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, Mike, you've actually gone through these points too. So I'm going to ask your help as we go through them. And I just figured we would start with, the first item and run through her 10 items here. I think in these 10 items, there are some sub items, and I think, if I'm right, there's around 17 or 18 different topics that we can sort of touch on here. But so if it's all right with you, we'll just start with the first one, and we'll try to go through each item here and try to give you as much information as we can.
Okay.
All right. So back on February 25th in 2019, we discussed camera monitoring on Ledge Road. And Mike, do you want to just touch on Newport and the cameras and what's going on out the backside of that, and sort of what Westford's allowed them to do?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. If I may, when I looked at Ms. Olson's letter, and I've known Ms. Olson for quite a while, we've served on some committees over the years, and she lives down the street. I went through her first couple of paragraphs and just had a couple of general comments that I would just add. She brought up a couple of points which I think are worth just addressing so people understand. There was an issue brought up about the construction of the roads, and I did talk to our town engineer, and he had previously indicated and again said that Ledge, Dunstable, Swain, Groton, and Main Street are engineered and constructed according to standards that should withstand some of these trucking issues that we're seeing right now. Also, there was the question about whether we can get a truck exclusion on Route 40, and that is explicitly prohibited by Section 10A9 of the Massachusetts Amendment to the Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's a document, it's the Massachusetts version of the federal rules, but basically numbered routes are ineligible for heavy commercial vehicle exclusions. And that also with regard to noise, I've written back and forth several times with Mass DOT, and they said that the town cannot prohibit the Jake braking that people often refer to when they use the engine brake to slow themselves down. And lastly, in those first paragraphs, there was a question about who regulates some of the pollution, odor, and noise and things. And I did check, and Mass Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, is responsible for any emissions from the plant. And according to a June 2019 email from Mass DEP, there is a permit number MBR 09IND005, which was issued for the facility, which is being constructed at 540 Groton Road and remains in full force and effect, and the limits in the permit meet the best available controls and technology for emission standards for this industry. So to address some of those points that were listed in the first page, there are people looking at it, DEP, but there are some things that we can't just touch upon, which is banning the trucks on Route 40 and the Jake breaks. But to get to paragraph 1.
Hey, Mike?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
yeah, I was just gonna, we were starting with 1, so I think the question, but I think you're gonna get to it, is really about the cameras on the backside and what's going on with that, just to get to that point.
So I spoke with Jeff Morissette from Westford the other week. They have cameras on their facility that are monitoring the ingress egress on Route 40 at 540 Groton Road, as well as something monitoring the internal roadways. And I do have some of the monitoring reports, but specifically on Ledge Road, in late spring of 2019, the town did install a stationary surveillance camera on Ledge Road. It is installed up near our sewer pump station. And similar to other surveillance cameras in town, the police department and other departments can use it to view the location. However, it doesn't perform any counts of any sort. As I indicated before in previous reports, Newport facility in 540 Groton Road, as well as the LeMessurier Quarry, are located in Westford. So the town of Westford is responsible for monitoring compliance of Newport's activities at these locations and the connecting internal network of roads. So those are the reports that Jeff Morissette has. They have been posting them on their website. They swapped to a new system. I have some of the current reports, and I can tell you that there is some internal traffic. Approximately 64 trucks a day are going internally, which means they're bringing materials to and from the quarries, which they're allowed to, down to 540 Groton Road. And right now there is traffic coming in and out of 540 Groton Road at approximately 84 trucks a day on average. I've been told that until the asphalt plant is up and running, which should be by the end of this month, they're doing other activities. There's a solar farm there, as well as they do some asphalt, brick, and concrete recycling, which would explain some of the truck traffic going in and some of the internal road traffic. With regard to the town of Chelmsford doing any compliance, we have, to the extent we can on our side of the town line, looked at some of the activities. At one point in time, Evan Belansky and I were looking at aerial photos and noticed some work that had been done close to wetlands. It caught our attention. We involved the Chelmsford Conservation Commission relative to the complaint of wetlands violations. It was investigated and determined not to be a violation, and that did involve notifying the DEP. So the things that are under our control, we do our best to monitor. But again, the camera that is up there, it can be useful if there's an incident. We can try and look and get truck lettering if possible. It isn't to the granularity to where we can see a license plate, but it does help us in the event there's an incident. We may be able to identify a truck if there's been a spill or some specific incident, but we don't have a counting station up there at this time. And that's all I have for number 1.
Mike, just give me a second. I want to, Sue, does that take care of your question or you?
Well, you know, one of the parts on that first, number 1 was, is Newport circumventing the agreement as it relates to the number of vehicles by using Ledge Road?
Oh, okay. I thought that was number 2. Oh, so I spoke again with Jeff Morissette, the land use coordinator over in Westford. The details of the truck restrictions are spelled out in the settlement agreement, as well as the master construction permit. And the 200 vehicle limit does not apply to any internal trips, but there is a prohibition on any type of asphalt going up those internal roads to exit the back of Ledge Road. There, according to the settlement agreement, there is no limit on the number of trucks that want to access Lemessurier Quarry via Ledge Road. But they are strictly limited under that MCP process to only 200 trucks accessing the asphalt plant by any means. And that's what Jeff Morris had said. It comes up in other questions, but in order for them to modify that condition of 200 trucks, they would have to go back through the public hearing process to modify the permit, which Mr. Moore said highly doubts that Newport would re-engage in that to try and expand because it was a lengthy and costly process. So they've told me that through their compliance with their cameras, they can see the vehicles that are going internally, and they would be able to detect if there was asphalt because they're supposed to travel internally without a cover. So if they detect it, then they can do compliance and enforcement checks. But to date, there's no asphalt going up and out Ledge Road.
But will it be once that asphalt plant is operational?
According to the permit, they cannot do that, and their video. And as Mr. Morris said, relayed to me, the amount of time and money spent to get the permit in place in the facility, he does not foresee them trying to do that because of the complications it would, generate.
Mike, can I ask Chris?
Yes, sir.
I mean, this is all well and good, and I appreciate all the work you put in, but really this doesn't stop. And I know, we're limited as to how we can't stop the traffic, or all the truck traffic going up that way. Have you walked the proposed road, which is just, hypothetical at this time, but, the more we look at it, the more we study it, maybe the quicker we can come to a resolution. And Kenny kind of put it together, and I've walked the road with him many times, as well as with the contractors and we had a meeting at Town Hall with Paul and self, I think, Evan, and all the stakeholders from up there, and they're all willing to contribute to building this road that would eliminate all the traffic on Ledge Road, on Dunstable Road, on Swain Road, on Groton Road, and on Main Street. So, I mean, these things are all well and good, but the trucks are still going to be going up there because as well as I do, if we go to court, we're going to lose. Number one, it's going to cost us a tremendous amount of money. So I'm just trying to, speed it up a little bit because I can appreciate the aggravation that we're going through with all this traffic. And I appreciate all the work you put into this. No means that I don't appreciate that, Mike. But I was just curious if you have walked that and what your opinion is, or have you got any feedback from any of these committees that have you've had up there looking at this particular project?
I have seen the proposal. I've talked with Chairman Lafave. I earlier, towards late last year and the beginning of this year, I had correspondence with Selectman Golden's office about getting his assistance. I've been talking with Bill Gillette and the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee as well. He's been working with the Representative Golden as well. I do agree that a road such as the one proposed would be the most beneficial solution in that it would streamline the flow of trucks, keep it off the residential roads, and provide access right to Route 3. As you may be aware, if you look at the aerial maps, there is a portion of land that is owned by the state, and they're kind of the key players here in getting their cooperation to allow the trucks to go through there to access Route 3. I have been to the top of the property. I have been onto the bottom half of the property, but I have not arranged a walk through the particulars of the road. I have spoken to all the stakeholders in the last few months, as I did help get them all to that meeting back in February. So I'm well aware of it. I think there is some benefit and merit to some of the other options that could be done concurrently, but that's something ultimately up to the board. But I do think the other solutions, while they may provide some temporary remedy, will not provide the long-term solutions, such as an access road that you talked about, Selectman Dixon.
Maybe I didn't understand exactly how you meant that. You mean you don't think that road would be the right solution?
No, I said the total opposite. I think that is going to offer the best solution long-term. The other solutions may provide some temporary relief, but the trucks will keep coming down Ledge Road. The best solution is to find an alternate way out of that quarry and to be able to shut off the Ledge Road exit. So if they were able to build that road with the cooperation of Newport Materials, the other business owners in the state, I think that is going to give the greatest benefit to all parties interested, the homeowners, the residents all along Ledge, Dunstable, Swain, Groton Road, and it would help some of the businesses up there and should reduce some of the aggravation between the parties as well.
George, just so you're aware, George, we do have and we were going to talk about this later after we got through Sue Olson's letter here. We do have a plan with the aerial views and so forth that we were going to pull up and then sort of talk more in depth of how the process should look. I know there's been a lot of back and forth about what could be done out there. And now that it seems that some of this plans are materializing a little bit, I thought it would be a good time to at least start talking about what the plan looks like. Maybe assign someone to be sort of the project manager on this, and have a central unit with a central place where all this information is collected, and then where we can distribute out to the public. So it's totally transparent. Everybody knows what we're talking about. What I don't want is to get to the point where this starts to come together really, and then have someone say, well, this was just all concocted backroom town hall. I want it to be totally transparent, clear. Everybody knows what's to gain and what's to lose as we go through this process with an alternative road. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But Sue, did Mike answer your question completely? I mean, I think his answer was there is a cap on the trucks going out the back. There is video monitoring when the asphalt plant's up and running. They are max, 200 trucks leaving that plant per day is the max. Doesn't matter if it's back or front, or it's 200 trucks. Are you okay with question one at this point, or do you have more questions?
Just last sentence, sorry. The number of trucks traveling on Ledge Road, according to Attorney Haverty, are they in violation of our zoning bylaw? He brought that up at a
Mike, maybe you can just answer just that one question. We're going to
I think that it's something that really can't answer at that time, because the expanded information that we've received has been part of an ongoing executive session relative to strategy with regard to litigation. So it's under that umbrella. So I don't think it's something that I'm allowed to disclose at this time.
Okay.
So in layman's terms, Sue, we've had a lot of discussions about the traffic counts and what's going on up there in executive session with the town attorney and what our options are. And without showing our hand, we really can't discuss what we're thinking on that road in public right now.
I think one of the biggest concerns that I've had is over 4+ years of seeing this increase in this traffic, the truck traffic. I know we can't, myself nor anyone else can stop traffic. We can't stop commerce. You can't, we can wish it away, but it's becoming so progressively worse that it's intolerable. You can't sit in your backyard. I have a grandson who's 12 years old who has severe autism. He lives with me and his mother. Brandon can't go outside with the trucks coming down. It bothers his ears and he starts to scream. And that's just one issue that, we deal with on a daily basis. And, I guess what really started, I've been writing this letter for quite some time, was the last Board of Selectmen's meeting when there was a discussion about putting a truck exclusion on the lower end of Dunstable Road that kind of threw me for a loop. And I would appreciate the public and the residents of this area be kept in the loop and be kept informed of what's going on. If I didn't watch the Board of Selectmen meeting, I wouldn't have known anything about it.
I
Perhaps-
can totally appreciate that, and that's part of the problem we have as a board of how to get the word out. Because we have the newspaper, we have cable, and we have the internet for the meetings. If people don't go looking for the information, we're not really sure how to get it out to them.
I understand.
To force it out.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, because that is a question and it was just brought up, it's I think the last item. What had happened for that particular agenda, Ms. Markey had called about the trucks and the shaking on that road, and we did have the building commissioner out there, as you know, and I had contacted Mass DOT in the week leading up since I had received her letter. And in the discussion with Mass DOT, they had said, when we previously looked at all the streets around Swain Road, Ledge, and Dunstable, they said that you could section off Lower Dunstable Road because there could be an alternative viable route, which you don't have for Northern Dunstable Road. So they were the ones who just said something to consider. So that's why I brought it up. I've since talked to NIMCOG about this. We can't even do the traffic counts until fall because the traffic patterns have been skewed due to COVID-19. And moreover, NIMCOG's last traffic counts on Lower Dunstable Road were so low, they don't even think with the increase in traffic that it would rise to the level of qualifying for a commercial vehicle exception, a heavy commercial vehicle exception. So it was a suggestion from DOT, and I just mentioned it. It wasn't intended to scare anybody. It just came up days before that particular meeting, so I was bringing it to the board's attention. And quite frankly, when I received your letters too, I realized that the letter probably came as a result of you getting caught off guard by that. But, each time we get a request, I'm trying to look at each neighborhood and see how we can provide some relief. And unfortunately, traffic, I often say, is like water. If we can stop it someplace, it's going to go someplace else, which is going back to the Selectman Dixon and Chairman Lafave's point about that road. If we have to push it somewhere, the best place may ultimately to be push it out a new access road. So that's all I have for that point.
Thank you.
So I'm back. Sorry about that. All right, so that would bring us to the second question here, and let me just get that shared up with you. So back on the 311 during a discussion with Mass DOT, you kind of touched on this a little bit, Mike.
Yeah.
Well, 2 and 3 are somewhat related because after Mass DOT came in last March, we arranged that meeting with the town manager of Westford, Jody Ross, as well as Matt Hansen from Tingsboro and their staff. And that's at the time that we did talk to the respective communities about what could be done at the quarries as well as Route 40. And it turns out, again, the land use coordinator pointed out that the 200 truck limit is a part of that major construction permit, and he indicated it could not be modified without it going back through that hearing process. And again, we had talked to the boards and asked them if they would, the respective staff, and asked them if they would talk to their boards. And we did not hear back from them. But I don't think it would be, or let me strike that. I think it would be probably a good time now that there's been some change, there's been some recent elections, that it may be prudent to reapproach those towns, and it may be more appropriate to have the request come from the board, but that's something we can flush out outside of the meeting.
I would agree with that.
Sue, what did
Can
you
repeat
say?
that?
I said I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Trying to reach out again.
All right. So then,
I guess number 3 kind of plays into that as well.
yeah. There's no 4.
I think it does and it doesn't.
What? Go ahead, Virginia.
Well, number 2 is about the exit on Groton Road. Number 3 was the question, and it doesn't help Ledge Road, but it does help Swain and Dunstable. Number 3 was the question of, can we try to point the trucks towards exit 34 coming out of Ledge Road, which is a totally different question than limiting the number of trucks coming onto Groton Road.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think they fall together. I think, and my understanding is there may be more receptivity from Tingsboro because exit 34 is being built up as commercial, not residential. So again, going back to the point that was made earlier about looking at some things that may be interim solutions until this access road can become a reality, which I know we're going to talk about later. I think this is still something that should be on our screen because it doesn't really cost us anything except some time and some commitment
Mm-hmm.
to work with the other towns.
I agree. I agree. I mean, this, you know, the issue with the whole agreement itself, and you know, with Westford somehow being allowed to force this traffic to come out of that plant in Westford and head towards Chelmsford or Route 3, whatever, you know, whichever way. But now that Mr. DeFelice has purchased more quarry property off Ledge Road, and you know, it's just, I don't want to, it's taking over this entire area of town. And it seems to be that, not that he's getting away with it, but it is a systematic, almost crushing of this area of town. What's going to stop him from purchasing more quarries? I mean, we can't stop it, but maybe get him more involved as well on trying to find a solution or some remedy that try to help the residents here.
I think all the people that were involved were at that meeting in town hall that day, and I think all of them were very, you know, willing to do whatever they could do to alleviate whatever problems they could. It's just my opinion. I don't know. You were there, Mike. You were there, Kenny. I don't know who else.
George, I don't think anybody's questioning that. I think my concern is there's a lot of things that have to fall in place for that road to happen. And if there are some near term things that we can do to help alleviate some of these issues, I think it's incumbent upon us to continue pushing on some of these things.
One of them, I'm assuming you mean like a left-hand turn out of there, is that?
That's what number 3 is. It's not the same as number 2. I don't think they're even close.
I agree with you, totally. I mean, that was my idea in the beginning. But,
Actually, number 3 is about getting the alternative viable route for the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. That's what that meeting was about, because pursuant to the DOT rules from the federal manual on uniform traffic control devices, because Dunstable Road dumps into Westford and Tingsboro, we can't use it as a truck exclusion route without getting their sign off. So it's.
Thank you, Mike. I forgot about that. But it still doesn't say that we shouldn't have the conversation.
No, and that's why I said, you know, in light of the recent elections and changes in what's been going on with development, I think it's warrant and prudent to reapproach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I agree with Virginia. We have to have all these discussions, and we have to have them publicly and make the public aware, so that it's when whatever decisions get made, people understand why we made them, how we made them, and how we see it's in the best interest of the public while we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
if we do have those meetings, if we do have those meetings, we maybe should ask some of the people who own the companies, run the companies, to be present, and you can ask them questions and see what they're willing to do or not willing to do.
Yeah, I think as we get closer, that probably could be an idea that would work. I think we got to get a little more commitment out of Tom Golden as we go through this, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that road in just a minute. So, question 5, Mike, are there any provisions in place or for anybody that relates to protection of the residents of North Chelmsford in the areas of odor control measures, sound monitoring, hours of operation, video monitoring, DEP stockpile monitoring, Board of Health, well water contamination, so forth?
So the bottom line is not really, everything is located on the Westford side of the line with regard to the facility, any stockpiling. I spoke to our Board of Health Director, Sue Rosa, and she said that they have no jurisdiction. However, we have been working with the Westford Board of Health, and as the board may know, I did get some recent baseline studies from the Westford Board of Health with regard to a sound survey and air quality studies, which I forwarded to the board, and I also forwarded to Mr. Hall. And I've been assured by the Westford Board of Health that they will be taking those same type of studies after the plant is up running, so that we understand what if any health risks could be coming from there. But at the end of the day, they're also being monitored by DEP pursuant to that permit. And DEP, next to California, has some of the highest and most stringent regulations in the country with regard to air pollution. I did talk to the North Chelmsford Water District with regard to any runoff, and they indicated at this time they have no real concerns. They have a zone protection system, which is essentially concentric zones around their wells, and this falls well outside zone 2, according to Bruce Harper. And in any event, if there was any problem, it would likely flow down through Swain Pond into the Merrimack, which is not ideal, but it would not be flowing into the North Chelmsford water. But at this time, they do regular testing of everything, and they said that there's no concern. So it does fall upon Westford, but as I said, we have a great relationship between our boards of health, and we've had open channels of communication with the manager's office. I speak frequently to my peer, the assistant Eric Heidemann, and we talk to the peer, Evan Belansky's equivalent, Jeff Morissette, as well as Ms. Ray Dick and Jeff Stevens from the Board of Health. So they have committed to let me know if there's a problem. So if we do, then I can relay it to the board.
Okay. So we're relying on Westford again for them to watch out for our air quality, or they're going to be monitoring it for
Well,
the residents?
I mean, there is a citizen petition that is going to be in the town needing warrant next week for an air study, but where it falls in their jurisdiction, they're doing the vast majority of their own studies. They're willing to share that data with us. As I said, North Chelmsford Water will keep an eye out, but it's not a major concern. They don't think it's a major concern to their water supply. If the town is inclined to do more, then that's something we can discuss.
I just relate to this hours of operation. Once this, I don't know anything about asphalt plants. When this asphalt plant is up and or operational and it starts, are there going to be asphalt trucks coming down Swain Road, down Groton Road?
Should not be. So when I spoke to DEP about aggregate, and when I talked to the folks about Newport, they make a similar type of product. They're asphalt batching plants, and their main clientele are people that do paving, primarily Mass DOT. And a lot of those projects do happen at night, and that's why you see the complaints that we get on Route 110, because the trucks are running at night. They do it for two reasons. It's easier to pave at night, and there's less traffic that they have to contend with, and you don't see the trucks out when people are commuting and when kids are trying to get on the bus. Now, the trucks are going to go where the paving projects are. If they're off of Route 3, down 128, 495, they're going to want to get on the highway. If for some reason they were doing a project on Route 3A, then you might see them come down Groton Road to Swain. They recently did a project on 3A down near Gorham Street in East Chelmsford. So I know that they do occasionally do maintenance, but the vast majority of these trips in and out. They're going to be doing heavy highway construction, and they're going to be getting right on the highway right there at the interchange, and you will probably never see the asphalt trucks.
Okay.
So Mike, more importantly, there's not asphalt trucks coming out Ledge Road.
There should not be
Right.
any coming out of Ledge Road.
Okay, thank you. And I guess number 6 is
All
a
right,
good
so-
point right now.
Well, number 6
Well-
was one of the options that we were asked to look at. There was residents that came in, were concerned about the truck traffic coming down Dunstable Road, and there was a question posed about putting sidewalks as well as for safety, but also for traffic calming measures. So the night I was talking about this, it was really the numbers to put sidewalks from Ledge Road down Dunstable Road to Dunshire for the residents and the school children. And I'm not sure if everybody recalls, but there is a stretch of Dunstable Road between Ledge and Dunshire that is in Tingsboro. So we could not have a contiguous sidewalk, but in the event we chose to go that road and worked with Tingsboro, we would be looking at $200,000 pursuant to an estimate from DPW to do up around Ledge Road in Dunstable. And then from the portion that crosses back into the town of Chelmsford on Dunstable down to Dunshire would be over $300,000 for new sidewalks. So an aggregate of almost $500,000 to run sidewalks all along that corridor. So that's where those numbers came from.
Now, in conjunction with this, you know, I know the warrant article has been amended for a town meeting as far as the widening of Ledge Road for the left turn onto Dunstable. Is that still an option for the future? Or is that on the way back burner right now?
I can't really comment on anything other than I believe we're still doing the easements right now on town meeting for the bus turnaround, but I do believe that we've tabled the left-hand turn for the moment.
Okay.
Mike, that's number 7. Number 7 was the one where we would need the left-hand turn implemented.
So number 7 is the viability of a truck exclusion on Swain Road. So DOT said that we don't have the viable alternative route as required by the federal regulations and the mass amendments to those. That's where we would need the sign in from Westford and Tingsboro to allow us to turn the traffic north and exclude the trucks from Lower Dunstable. So I think what Ms. Olson is asking is, can we still look at changing the end of the road? And I think that's one of the options that could be available to the board. We did get some numbers at one point. I think I put it in my January traffic memo that there would have to be some engineering costs before we could move forward. Steve Young had provided me some numbers. I think it was over $100,000 for the engineering. And until we committed at least to that stage, National Grid said that they would not look at moving the pole and helping. So we have to make a commitment to that project before we can get the buy-in from the utilities. So that's, I think, going back to what Chairman Lafave alluded to earlier, we have to look at all of our options and lay them out and see which ones, make the most sense, which could be done potentially at the same time, concurrently, and which one's going to get us the most benefit in the shortest amount of time, and the one that will get us the most benefit overall. So that, I think, is the discussion later on in the evening.
Mhm.
Okay.
Number 8, is that was taken down, right?
Yeah,
no
so
truck-
if there's any good news out of this, when I called and spoke to Mass DOT, I have a very good relationship with the engineers there now in our district, because I talk to them almost weekly. They could find no record of that being unauthorized heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. They immediately contacted Tingsboro and said that it can't be up there and that they needed to take the signs down. I drove by there last week and the signs were gone.
Thank you.
Okay, and then finally, question 9. Well, 9 and 10, let's do 9, Mass DOT.
And 9 is really going to fall under the executive session umbrella. Again, Mass DOT gave me a gray area opinion about whether or not it was a truck exclusion or because Commerce Way could be viewed as a driveway or a roadway. And so I did forward some of their information on to town council. And so that is part of an ongoing executive session discussion.
Okay.
So I can't say much more about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And number 10, we already alluded to that, I didn't mean to alarm anybody in the other neighborhoods. It was really just a response to the board about our options with regard to Ms. Markey and the residents there that were seeing what appeared to be some shaking and damage to their homes due to the trucks going over the culverts. And again, it's a preliminary investigation. It's going to take a considerable amount of time to even get the data to determine whether or not we could get a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion on Lower Dunstable Road. And it was really just an option to bring to the board and the community if it was viable. So I'm just doing the background research so that we'll have it in the fall in case we haven't made headway with any of the other options that we could go that route. So it really just goes to show that we're listening to what various people are asking, and we're constantly looking to see what, if anything, we can do. Not every solution is perfect, but if we can help people, we'll try and find a way to do it.
Well, I do appreciate you all taking the time to answer our questions and our concerns that we had. I would appreciate that, the board or, in some way keep the residents informed of, what's going on. I guess my next concern tonight would be the RFP from Evan. So I'll have to watch that too, because I don't know what's going to happen with that. But there's so much going on over here, so much more build out that's going to be happening that it's very concerning. Living here for 47 years that we have, that what's happening to this neighborhood. I do appreciate your time.
No, thank you for coming on tonight, Sue. That was it's great that you took the time to log in and ask a lot of these questions that I think your fellow residents up there probably have, and I hope people are watching and listening so they have the answers also. Feel free to share them. And then, yep.
Excuse me. So I know we're going to talk more about the access road and kind of how we're going to approach the process going forward. Looking at what Mike just reviewed from Sue Olson's letter, if there are things that we're going to keep in play or just at least touch on occasionally, depending on how other options progress. The two that I noted were number 3 and number 7.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're talking about the process going forward, when you get into the access road discussion, I think those are some of the previous things that were in play that maybe we should consider also touching on as it makes sense, or making a concerted effort on, especially in the case of number 3.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. I mean, again, when we did our traffic listening session, we did say that there were going to be solutions that were, 6 months, things that took longer than 6 months to probably 2 years, and stuff that was going to take longer than 2 years. And I think your items in Sue's letter fall into that, 6 months to 2 year range, and the access road falls into that 2+ year range for solutions. So definitely we can do a 2 or 3 pronged approach here to the solution.
All right, thank you very
With
much.
that, can we jump into just a little bit of a discussion on the access road, or it might turn into a bigger discussion on the access road? Just because I want to get it out there. There's been a lot of questions that have come my way about what is it, what's being proposed, what kind of backroom deals are being struck, and sort of, what angles are people trying to get. And I just want to, put it out there, how it started, what the thought was, where we're at today, and go from there.
Hey, Ken.
Yep.
So I'm getting text messages, and so I'm just going to relay this question because apparently this one hasn't been asked and answered. This person feels that it's been going on 3 years and the town has done 0. This person would like to close down Ledge Road completely and probably not FDA approved verb the state. Roads are torn up, traffic is insane. North Chelmsford lives matter, says this person. So if we just shut down the state and declared fiefdom North Chelmsford here, what exactly would happen?
Paul?
If the town would have shut down Ledge Road, you'd be immediately I expect you'd immediately be slapped with a lawsuit from the businesses that operate through Ledge Road, meaning the quarries. That's been a historic route to the quarries. We don't know of any other viable alternative route to access their property. You'd be probably slapped with an immediate injunction as well as a lawsuit from the quarry owners.
And do you have any idea what the approximate value of the quarries is?
I have no idea. I don't know what they were purchased for, or what their revenue is, or their economic.
Yeah, a lot of it's in Westford, so
yeah,
we don't.
So, in other words, we would get sued, fined, spend a lot of money and time on lawyers' fees, dealing with judges laughing at us for attempting to declare, the kingdom of North Chelmsford, and we would end up wasting a lot of money. So I think that what we're doing, where we're taking thoughtful questions from folks like Sue Olson, who really sat down and looked at everything and went over the history and then asked very thoughtful questions, and then we tracked down answers, I think that is doing something. I think we're trying to find solutions here. And while it would be fun to put up some sort of wall and pretend we have that kind of rights because that's this kind of society, I just don't think that that's practical. So if folks have other questions that have not been asked and answered, we can ask them, but how much time do we want to spend with but what ifs?
Yeah, no, I agree. So with that, and you're better than me, Emily. I was getting the same text and just ignoring them until later. So I just wanted to start by sort of giving a little bit of background. And if anybody, knows anybody that has questions about this, they can always refer them to this meeting, which obviously is being taped and you can play it back. But probably well over a year ago, I think we were sitting in a planning board meeting, or I forget what meeting we were sitting in, but we were talking about Ledge Road and the traffic and everything that was going on up there. And I had my laptop out, and as I was looking at the aerial view of the area, I noticed on the map that there was a partial road that you could see, and it's actually on one of the documents Mike had up earlier. You could see the road running, down through Westford to the Chelmsford line. You could see the Wardway Road, and as I'm sitting there looking at it, I'm thinking, why wouldn't we just build a road that runs, parallel to Route 3? And I know coming back from the mall, when you look to the right as you go through that area, you can see the road wind in and out of the woods there. So that was my first thought, is why can't we just build a road that comes out on Route 40, parallel to Route 3, 100 feet over, and allow them access to the on-ramp onto Route 3 South at Route 40. I mentioned it to George, and on a Friday morning, George said, get in your car, we're going for a ride. And the two of us drove up to the aggregate plant up there, and there we are in my sedan driving over the dirt roads and through the place until we finally got stopped and someone asked what we were doing. And we had driven a good portion of the road, albeit it was meant for trucks, but and we explained to the person, we were with the town of Chelmsford, and we were trying to figure out what if possible could be done with this road. At that point, the plant manager up there invited us to hop in his truck and he'd give us a tour. And as he was giving us a tour of the aggregate plant, he came down this road and came out and JP Rivard's property. And he pulled into the yard at JP Rivard, and I said, wait a minute, this is connected already? He said, yeah, there's kind of a road that goes. And so that's when George and I went to Mike and said, can we get all the business owners in a room to talk about, is there an opportunity to construct a road? What would it take, and who would have to be the stakeholders in the room to make this decision? And Mike and Paul did a great job. They got Evan Belansky from Community Development. They got all the business owners into the room that were up there, and Tom Golden came. And we all talked about what were the pieces that would need to have to come together, and who would pay for it. Because obviously, if this is a $5 million job, the town doesn't have the money to build a $5 million road. And I made it very clear to the business owners up there, the lower the cost, the more likely it was to happen. And I probably expressed that 4 or 5 times in that meeting to them. Get the hint. If you pick up the cost, it's more likely to happen than if the town's picking up the cost. The business owners, in my opinion, seemed very interested in that option because they obviously don't like the complaints from the residents on Lock Road. The aggregate plant up there has their own street sweeper that's been going out twice a day to sweep Lock Road. They don't like it when the trucks go in and out. They get complaints about, even though they're not their trucks. They want to be a good neighbor to the neighbors up there. So there was a lot of interest, I think. And Mike and George, Paul, you can either help me out here, agree, or chime in at any point, but there was a lot of interest, it seemed like, from them to get this road or, an access road built. The sticking point was, as we came down, a lot of the road was already built on the Westford side, from Westford running down. It's from the Chelmsford line down to Route 40. And a lot of that, the landowners that were there bought in. However, to complete the road, you would need to cross over a very small portion of what used to be the town's, the state's rest area, which is now DOT land. And we would have to cross over one of the houses, maybe it's 2 of the properties that are now owned by the developer that bought a lot of the houses on the north side of Route 40. So when I realized that, I reached out to the engineer for the landowner and asked if there was any way that they would be willing to give us an easement or an access road across her land to complete this project. So we had commitment from Tom Golden to go to the state and ask the DOT if we could have access across that land. And then we gave the last and final landowner, which is the key piece, which would allow us to put in an intersection light at the bottom of the Route 40 on-ramp going south, where the trucks could come out of an access road and cross directly over, never going up or down Route 40, not having to touch Lead Road or Dunstable or Main, and allow them just to get on Route 3 south and head south. So the lady that owns that land talked to her engineer and came back and said she'd be willing to give us access road through either an easement or let us buy the land. And so the question became, well, what would it take? And her comment, well, I would need to be able to, you folks would need to have to rezone from the highway to Wardway, the land there, so that I could get some type of a project in there that I could make some money on that would justify me giving you the land that you need to finish the road. So that's in a very broad stroke overview of what took place up until, today at this point of the discussions that have been had and sort of the concept. Mike, do you have the aerial shot of the road that you could just put up to show us? Hold on, you're muted. Can you unmute, Mike? Yep.
Yeah, I should be unmuted right now.
Can you
let me see if I
just
can.
A picture of that.
Yeah, hold on, I'm trying to do it. It's not letting me, can you see anything now, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, we got it. So the blue line on the screen there is where the road we want to have built. And I mean, that's a pretty general overview. The blue line goes directly through the Commonwealth owned land. The road would actually come down and kind of turn around that and run along that red square and then cross over just a corner of that square and come out opposite the on-ramp to Route 40 and the on-ramp to Route 3 South. So that's in theory what we're trying to accomplish. The next step, we're waiting for the state portion of this with the quarantine and everything that happened. It sort of got put on hold. We'll probably know more before the fall, at which point, if it does look like the state is working with us, we'd have to go before town meeting and ask for some rezoning from the highway to Wardway, for her to allow us, for her to either give us an easement across her land or to give us the land to build the road. And that's all conversations I hope to have in public. Talk about what could go in there, what options, what doors or Pandora boxes this would open, the pros and the cons of everything, so everybody's aware of who would benefit, who would get hurt. Obviously, if we put a road in like that, there's still residents on each side of the road on Route 40 that would be affected by that road. And we'd have to just weigh that out and let town meeting decide if they'd be willing to do that. That's pretty, again, broad overview of what we were thinking. I don't know if anybody wants to add to our discussions and what went on, if I missed anything. Or if anybody has any questions about what we were thinking.
I'd just like to formalize the suggestion that I made that we pick a date 2 weeks or a month from now and put some notifications out there, or possibly even put some things in the mail to people in these neighborhoods and have a public input session on this concept so that you're getting any concerns or questions or buy-in early and not when
Yep, I would 100% support that. That's fine.
So
with me.
I don't know, I guess I would ask Mike and Paul what would be a reasonable time frame to be able to put some kind of notification out there for a public input session. Is it a month from now? Is it 2 weeks from now?
My only first thought would be we have town meeting next Monday. After that, it's June 29th, and then you're almost into the July 4th holiday weekend. So we have, I believe, a Board of Selectmen meeting scheduled for the 29th, if my memory serves me correct. And I don't know. Oh, no, of June.
Oh.
And I don't know how heavy the agenda is at this point. One thought is it could be an agenda item and you could hold the meeting at either a Zoom meeting or, I don't know if we're ready to do. We still can't do a public meeting at something like this.
No, I'm suggesting that it be an agenda item on a Board of Selectmen meeting, that we're going to take public input on this concept and that you'll present whatever it is we know at that time, and then we'll get public input. That was my thought, unless you think it needs to be a separate meeting.
No, I would think you're talking at least 4 to 6 weeks away. 2 weeks from tonight isn't sufficient time, I don't believe. And so I would think you're either talking the board's July 13th meeting or the July 27th meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, because we'd want to publish that on our website as well as social media, and we could get some immediate butter notification out on on Route 40. We could go to the assessor's office. We could get some of the residential addresses, just like you would for a planning board zoning appeals, and maybe send something out to those folks.
I would think July 13th. We're going to have a similar thing in 2 weeks on the from tonight regarding Charles Way. Notices have been sent to all the property owners on Charles Way that the board intends to discuss Charles Way on the 27th. Town council will be providing a report and so forth. I think we could do a similar thing for the July 13th meeting, get notices out this week, which gives, about almost 4 weeks of advance notice, and have this discussion on July 13th.
Is that okay with you, Ken?
That's fine with me. I didn't know if you were thinking a specific meeting just for this topic or part of a regular board meeting.
I mean, I was thinking we could do it as part of a regular board meeting, unless you think it's going to be more involved than that.
No, not really. I mean, I'm fine with the regular board meeting. I just want to make sure that I'm doing what what people want. That's all. And I think at that point too, what we should probably also commit to do, and we can talk a little bit further about this, but we should probably figure out who's going to be the sort of project manager on this, per your suggestion, Virginia. My guess, Mike, you've done a pretty good job of getting the business owners in the room, but maybe you become the central keeper of all the emails, the back and forths, and we come up with a key list of people. Because I know there were some emails that went around over the last week I didn't see that I probably would have appreciated reading. That went around with the Vinyl Square or North Chelmsford people. But just so we're all aware of the concerns people have, because if I don't know someone has a concern and I'm pushing forward in a certain direction, I'd like to know maybe that I'm either spinning my wheels or maybe I just need to shift a little bit to make everybody happy. But I just think that we should have one central location and one person sort of managing the whole project.
And I just want to echo, I think that's important. I've also seen emails about, anyone can contact our reps as a resident, but I've seen emails of individuals volunteering to contact them on behalf of this project, and I'm getting a little confused. We do have liaison assignments from the board. Is this a Vinyl Square project? Is it a board project? And some of them I don't actually understand what we're contacting the reps about. I saw some communication about sending more traffic besides the 200 trucks a day from the asphalt plant out the Newport Materials driveway onto Groton Road. And I mean, before we're contacting representatives to say that's what we want to do, I'd like to get some alignment around that, because I personally have a problem with that. I think you're shifting the problem from one neighborhood to another. If the access road is there, that's an entirely different story. But without the access road there, I don't support just shifting traffic over to a different place in town. It's like the analogy Mike gave with the water. It's just so I think there needs to be tighter coordination, and I like the idea of having a project manager in front of it.
Well, like you said too, Virginia, you don't want people going off sort of half-cocked and saying, I'm going to call and ask for X, and it's not in line with what maybe they misunderstood or they misheard what we were trying to request. And then you have the reps sitting there going, I'm getting 5 different calls with 5 different sort of requests, and I have no idea what they want, and they're disorganized. I'm not going to do anything. So we have to have a very clear picture and a very clear.
And my understanding is, in order to get, when we're able to talk to the state as they emerge from the COVID crisis, in order to get any action, we're going to need some solid plans in place, not just phone calls with ideas. So
right.
Well, we do. It's really important that we work to get that planning in place.
Yeah, we did get a pretty good drawing from the landowners up there where they would like the road to go, and a cost summary of what they thought it would be to put the road in, and they're aggregate and road guys, so I'm going to assume that they're pretty much in the ballpark. And then furthermore, just update people on, as far as the light, the interchange light that's going to be needed there. Tom Golden did add that to the bond bill already. And so some of those steps, I think there's going to be a Mass Works grant that's going to be needed, and some of these other things I'd like to make people aware of, so they know what in the process has been done and where we're at and how it's moving along. It'd be great if I could wake up tomorrow, pull a big sheet off of the area and say, look, there's a road, everybody. But that's not going to happen, and we need a lot of help. We're going to need a lot of support. We're going to need a lot of people to get involved. And
And so-
without knowing, they're not going to get involved. So we need to keep everybody aware of what's going on.
And I think if Mike and Paul are willing to help us pull this together for the 13th, Mike can present whatever we know at that time and whatever we know needs to happen. And like I said, we can start getting more alignment around it. I'd really be interested to hear if Pat or Emily have anything to add.
I was going to say, it sounds like a lot has been done on this, and I've been very uninvolved. A lot of it is news to me. I'm very disappointed that you haven't involved the board more, the whole board more in these discussions and what you need and how it's going to look.
Well, part of that, Pat, was, to be really frank about it, I was told it wasn't doable. And I wanted to do a little bit of footwork and before I got anybody's hopes up. And then it seemed really doable really quick. And then the quarantine hit. So nothing's really happened in the last 3 months. What did happen took place in a matter of probably 5 weeks from the point that George and I drove the plant up there in my car to the point that the owners all came into the room was probably not even, maybe 5 or 6 weeks at most. If I think, maybe I'm off, George, but it came about really quick. And I was just told right up front, it can't be done. It's not doable. It's such a Hail Mary. It's a long shot. There's too many pieces to get, too many different parties to get involved. And then it just seemed like everybody was like sort of on board with it. So it did come about pretty quickly. And again, I didn't want to put it out there if it was not going to be an option and get people's hopes up.
Well, I guess I would say it sounds like you have some stuff that you said you've gotten from these engineers about the cost and what it would look like. And also, I'll remind you that's what we have executive sessions for too. Talk about things if you don't want to put them out there. But I would have appreciated being more involved and have more knowledge about this before tonight.
Okay, I appreciate that comment. Like I said, I mean, from the point I think that we had the meeting with the business owners, they said within 1 week they would have the drawing and the cost estimate. And I think it took about, I don't know, Paul, was it 10 days, 14 days? How long did it take for them to turn around that plan?
Yeah, it took a little while. It took a few weeks for them to finally get it to us. We were looking for it, saying, "When is this coming? When is this coming?"
Yeah, but 3 weeks. I mean, it wasn't months of us going back and forth with tons of meetings. I want to say within 5 weeks, everything sort of just clicked. But
Well,
you're right. I should have.
Excuse me, Kenny. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm good, George. Go ahead.
I was just going to say they were doing a lot of the work themselves, and they were trying to lay the road out. And when they came to what they call a little blurb or whatever, they did a land swap amongst themselves. I mean, we weren't part of that. I don't think we really knew it was even happening until it was over, right? I mean, I mean, I think they're in it with, full tilt, but they did that land swap so that to make the road easier. I think Newport and Rivard swapped off some wetlands really to make it easier for the road to go. So I don't think any of us were involved in that at all until it was over, were we?
No, and I've been in communication with some of the landowners up there, and they did let me know, that they were talking amongst themselves, to Selectman Dixon's point, that they were going to facilitate the land swap to help put the parcels in line. So as you previously indicated, they're motivated and they're talking amongst themselves to a degree, some of them anyways.
Yeah, I didn't know about the land swap until it was, I think went on to a meeting item or something. It was, or maybe it was posted somewhere and someone brought it to my attention. It wasn't anything that took place in our conversation. So what happened is some of the land that's needed for the road, JP Rivard gave to Aggregate, and Aggregate gave them some of their land to JP Rivard, so they had a little more room for their trailers. I guess if I understand that right, to just clear way for the road. So that all happened behind the scenes without any of us knowing that. But it does speak to the fact of the concept of this road on their end. To them, to me, that sends a message that it looks like a good, viable option or something they're very interested in if they're behind the scenes doing that type of work.
So To this concept of a project manager for something like this from the town's point of view, where we can sort of funnel things through so that we're not getting mixed messages from 58 different people, and so that there's that common point of information dissemination and gathering. What does that look like, and who would take that over?
My thought would be Mike would take it over. As far as what it would look like, I'm assuming that you mean as far as conversations with the key parties and emails. I mean, I would just hope that we direct everybody that's looking for information to Mike. Mike keeps a database of the plan and where it is and at what step we're at. And maybe we keep it, I don't know, on the website, or we just have it at anybody's disposal to look at, so that it's all public. Again, I think in this era of everybody assuming that, somehow, some way, some deal's being done, the more transparent we make this, the more information we put out there, I would hope people understand what we're trying to do, and there's no ulterior motive. It's all about just doing what's best for the most number of homes that are in North Chelmsford that are being affected by these trucks.
If I could add a thought to what that looks like, Ken, we talked about having this public input session, but it seems that one thing we might want to consider is putting the traffic on as an agenda item on some type of regular cadence. So we're addressing this project if something's moving on it, or number 3 or number 7 from Sue Olson's letter, or whatever else is the hot traffic topic in town. So, maybe, and I'm just throwing this out there, the first meeting of every month, there's an agenda item for traffic updates or traffic discussion. Because we have, and I don't know what the right frequency is, and I don't know how fast this project is going to move, because like you said, it could take over 2 years for something to come from it. But even if it's just a quick status update that we have nothing new to report, at least people are informed.
No, I think that's spot on, because my thought when we did the original traffic listening session about a year ago was that we would do that on an annual basis. But obviously with the COVID-19, we can't have that type of meeting. And I think a lot was done over the last year with that list. I think it's really was kind of blown to pieces. And I'd like to get people's input on what's now their big concern along with Ledge Road. So I think that's a great point. Maybe the first meeting of every month we have
a lot was done with the traffic committee, which is fine. But I think, and when we asked, Mike brought that forward, but I think maybe we could think about doing just a more disciplined look at bringing whatever is relevant once a month or something up in an agenda item, just to keep people informed.
Paul, in your traffic meeting, I know the one I had attended a while back that I was really late for, which I apologize for profusely that day, but we had talked about traffic calming measures on 2 roads in town. I'm going to assume with everything that's happened, the traffic sort of died out on those roads, but is that still an item that might be implemented at some point?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Michael. We were talking about the Main Street one not too long ago. Michael wanted to give an update on where we're at on that.
Mr. Chairman, I anticipated with the warmer weather that we should start looking at that, and I have talked to Assistant DPW Director Steve Yonley. As you know, he attends the Traffic Safety Committee meeting along with Gary Persichetti, and he had identified a spot on Main Street. The COVID-19, some of their priorities have changed, but he has it on his radar screen. We talked about it. He said he was going to get working on that so that we could set up some temporary barriers on the 2 streets that we previously discussed. I think it was Main Street, and we talked also about Brentwood at one point, so that we could give it a. What was that, Mr. Chairman?
I agree. You're right. It was Main Street and Brentwood.
Yeah. So he had indicated to me that he had identified some locations that he thought would be viable, and he need to go out and look at them, and that he was going to try and get to them as soon as they dealt with some of the other stuff that they're working on at the moment. I will follow up with him again this week, but we started talking about it about a week or so ago that now that the weather was better, things were opening up, we need to get out there and take care of that.
So I just to a point Pat made earlier, like this is the first I've ever heard of anything like this. So I think if we could do something on a regular monthly basis to just whatever's relevant, start updating people, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, maybe we can get, that came out of a traffic meeting. So maybe we could have someone from that committee report to us once a month on things that were covered.
Well, that's Michael. Michael was giving updates, pretty regularly, and we will get back on that schedule.
I'm sorry, but I think I missed what the reason for what they were gonna do on both of those streets. Was they gonna slow the traffic down, or were they?
We're gonna look at, the chairman and I went for a site visit, probably back at the end of January, early February, and you'll forgive me for the town, I can't remember it, I always forget it, Mr. Chairman, but they have, what town was it? Was it Westwood? Norwood. They have traffic islands periodically on some of their heavily trafficked streets, which they're in the center lane of the road, and it forces the traffic to slow down because the road narrows, and for the traffic to navigate, they really have to slow down. There's a bulge in the middle of the road, and they're forced to slow down. And there are a couple of streets that we looked at here in town that have a lot of straightaways that are used for cut-through traffic, and then we have complaints of speeding. Main Street, where we do get a lot of complaints from the folks in North, and then Brentwood has been notorious as a cut-through. So the idea was that we would go out and stripe those roads and create an island, as well as put in some temporary barriers, and those could be in the form of large barriers, barrels full of sand, so that it would, with the appropriate signage and reflectors and things, so that people would see them. But as they'd be coming down the road would tighten essentially because of the bulge in the middle. With the shoulder of the road, it would cause them to slow down. It's been effective in other areas, so we want to give it a try here in some of the roads that we get the majority of our complaints from.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think where that came from, George, was in one of my understanding from Mike is that one of those traffic meetings, they realized that Main Street, and talking to the chief of police and the chief from the fire department, they had, was it 3 deaths, Mike, over the last 10 years or so on Main Street?
Well, about a year ago, there were 2 deaths right in a less than a quarter of a mile. There's 3 straightaways on Main Street, each connected by a very odd corner. One's deceiving and one's almost a hairpin turn, a 90-degree turn. And there have been serious accidents at all those locations. But about 18 months ago or so, I will say there was a fatal right by Lovett Lane, and then shortly before that, there was one down by Aberdeen. So we're talking hundreds of yards between the 2 crashes.
Also, it's a cut through for a lot of the heavy trucks, going through the center. They cut through over the Meadowbrook and then Pine Hill or wherever to I think the aggregate plant, to be honest with you, but I'm not sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments on our item here as far as truck traffic issues, Route 40 or anything? Okay. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, diversity change items for racial harmony. And I think what triggered this, well, we all know what triggered this this item on our agenda, and we received a letter from Karen Boss asking us to look at 4 items. I don't know if anybody would like to open up or start a discussion on how you want to handle this.
There's just one thing I'd like to mention. In January, I went to the Mass Municipal Association conference, and Mike McCall, you might remember, at the end of that conference, they had a gentleman speak there. I think he was from the National League of Cities. And this is an initiative that MMA was about to partner with, about to launch with the National League of Cities. And it's called, they call it REAL, for Race, Equity, and Leadership. And the plan was, and I looked at the MMA website today, and they have started to do this, was to have some resources and some training on this particular issue, available across the whole Commonwealth, because MMA does advocate and does provide training and resources, for every municipality across the Commonwealth. So I think something has been started on this at that level. I think, obviously everything else that has gone on in the past, months has kind of changed the focus of everybody. But it's perhaps something that we could look at some of the things that they have there on that website and see what the plans are on a statewide level, because I don't know that having these particularly unique things to Chelmsford, I mean, that might help us, and then again, it might just be a box that you check and then no action is taken. Something on a wider, regional or statewide focus, I think, would be more effective.
So I actually wrote to Paul about this, and I didn't want to share it with the whole board because I wasn't sure where the open meeting line was, but I compiled a fairly lengthy list of links, and actually I've got like another 5 or 10 since then, because so much of the stuff is coming out. But I mean, there are folks who are working on reading lists for all levels. There are folks who are working on curriculum changes. I've been talking with Donna Newcomb on the school committee about what we can do, and we've reached out to Arun Venugopal and Emma Walsh to see if we can meet and see where they're at. I would actually really like to see a way to bring a high school delegation into most of the conversations that happen in town government. I realize that you cannot have folks who are not registered voters participating officially. However, I also think that one of the directions we're heading in is that we're going to be looking seriously at 16 and 17-year-olds voting in the next decade or two, because they are so much better educated than past generations. They have so much more access to information and real perspective on history. And I think that we can look at things. There are some initiatives in other countries. Canada has a really good Indigenous peoples program, if you can go and find it, from the organizations that run it. And I think we can be looking at, from a local perspective, I think that NIMCOG needs to get in on this, because I think that having every single town set up their own diversity panels and come up with very area specific or town specific curricula changes is not as practical as working together with organizations like NIMCOG. So that's what I would like to see. And I would also like to see the kids themselves involved, because they are taking a lead that we adults have failed to do. And we've failed over and over to take that lead and to actually say the things that need to be said. And I want to bring these young adults in. They do know what they're talking about. They are smart, they are articulate, and they are trying to communicate, and folks are shutting them down. I've seen some real nastiness from grown adults in this town on public pages directed at these young adults. And I think that we need to pay them their proper respects and listen to them, because they are going to be making legal decisions in the next year or two. Hopefully they're all registering to vote. Hopefully they're all planning on voting in the next few election cycles. But I think that it would be a step in the right direction to have some sort of input from the high school students in this town and from our college students who have stuck around and are going to local schools.
And I believe that's part of the plan that was put out in Dr. Lang's recent communication. Pat, thank you for the information about the MMA training. I wasn't aware that they were doing that.
Emily,
Say what?
I was going to say the school committee they have high school students that come in from the different schools and give them updates
Yes.
and give feedback. And I think that might be something we could possibly, institute, where we just maybe have a student come to a board meeting and sit and participate if they're interested.
I think that would be great. The presentations that the students do at school committee meetings are absolutely inspiring. The depth and breadth of and the thinking capacity of these kids is outstanding. And we don't give them enough credit as adults, and we don't listen to them enough. And I think that that's really important. I've actually had trouble accessing Dr. Lang's communication, so I keep opening it, and then it keeps bringing me it as a plate. So I haven't read it. I've read excerpts from it, but I've also been trying to get into a new job, and it's been taking more of my time. So Donna and I have been talking, and we're going to see if we can come up with something in conjunction with the school committee. I would like to know how we as the rest of the board can facilitate that. And I think in the past, Ken, I've brought up to you that we should actually be having the other boards and committees check in more regularly with the select board, if for no other reason than to give them like 15 minutes every now and then, so that they can update the town on what they're doing, and we can get more seats filled so that people better understand what the roles of boards and committees are and how they can best participate. I think it would make for a more democratic town where more people participate in what is going on at the local level.
Well, maybe what we should do then is take the calendar that we voted on at our last meeting or 2 meetings ago and figure out which boards you and the board would like to get updates from, and ask them to at least put it on their schedule so that we know when they're scheduled to come in and give us updates, and that way it works into their schedule that they've probably already put together for the next year.
That's a good idea.
And a few years ago, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen used to have a chairman's meeting periodically, maybe once or twice a year, with chairs of other boards and committees. Perhaps you could do something like that and have it be a special meeting that's all it was, and have the chairs of 6 or 8 or maybe even more than that committees come in and speak for 10 or 15 minutes on what their board and their committee is working on and what their focus might be in the near term.
Was the chair meeting a meeting that took place with the entire Board of Selectmen there and all the chairs just came in, or was it just the chairmen of the boards?
Just the chairs of the boards.
Okay. And was it like an open discussion roundtable, or was it a tight agenda where they each came in with their own topics?
There was no real agenda. They were just called on one at a time, and they would get up and speak, and then there was general discussion or questions after each spoke. I mean, I guess you could make it whatever type of format you wanted.
Okay.
I mean, it hasn't been done, I don't think, in a few years, but I mean, that might be helpful too, as far as getting out the word on what each of the other boards and committees do, and generate some interest that way. It never used to be televised. I think maybe, obviously it would be helpful if it were televised.
Right. Well, my guess is it probably hasn't been done in 6 years, but at least. But maybe I can reach out to you offline and get an idea how that format was handled and set up. George, were you going to ask anything?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you said something.
So on the topic that we were on, and Paul, I'd welcome your input too. What I struggle with is jumping to point solutions before we take the time to better take a holistic understanding of the problem space. And I'm not suggesting that we don't understand that there's a problem. But should we be, and I don't think necessarily that this board has the expertise to tackle the whole thing. So should we be considering something like a public input session on diversity, just to hear from not only the youth, but other people in town, what's on their mind when it comes to diversity and harmony? Should we be considering having someone from the HR community or some type of outside expert help us just take an objective look at where are we in the town, in our culture, in our hiring, in our whatever the subjects are, right? And I'm thinking out loud. I'm more of a systematic person where I like to start and get input without assuming an outcome, and then say, okay, what do we, now that we have that, what do we do with it?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that's my thought.
yeah, I mean, I think the analogy is a year ago, the board heard a lot of concerns about traffic, and you held a traffic listening session where you met at the senior center, you opened up the room, and it was basically anybody who had a concern could step up to the microphone and express their concerns. And I think, that's the place to begin with this issue. Clearly, there's some, when you look at the turnout that was on the Common, a week ago Friday, that was impressive. And as you say that there was somebody out in front of the building today with signs, expressing concerns for a few hours. So I think the way to begin would be to hold a listening session. And then, as you say, the topics that are raised at that listening session may then guide future steps in terms of how to proceed. But I would agree. I don't think that, to just jump towards a direction when we really haven't heard from the community is the appropriate first step. So I think that's sort of the way it would begin, would be just put the word out, similar to what we did with the traffic thing, saying, here's an opportunity, young, old, whomever, come and express concerns so that, your voices can be heard and we can provide some understanding of how to proceed going forward. And then from there, you can then assess with goals and tasks and reports and so forth, and what resources would be needed.
And that, I think, is a separate session, not an agenda item.
Exactly.
Yes, clearly that would be, yeah.
And my sense is you ought to do that sooner than later. I mean, meaning no later than next month, because you can see the patience is rather thin. And I think the sooner you announce that you're doing this, I think the better that it, the people will get some attention and realize that the town is interested in doing an introspective look at how it can do things, better in terms of, the community. I mean, obviously the school committee has a limited focus on the public schools and the curriculum and the environment there. But we, as you noted, Virginia, there's a number of layers here in terms of living in the community, serving the community, working for the community. It's very broad.
So do you want to look at potentially scheduling that tonight, or do you want to, if we're going to try to tackle this as fast as possible, is it something you want to look at tonight and say we should set up a diversity listening session and pick a date tonight?
I think that's a good idea. Pull out your calendars, see what we can do.
Realistically, you've got one Monday in July that's really viable. The board, your regular meetings are on the 13th and the 27th. I don't think July 6th is a viable date because it's the vacation week and falling right after the 4th of July. So I think you might want to look at Monday, July 20th as the evening. And I think the problem is it's hard to do in the Zoom format, but I don't know that we have any other choice under the current regulations. It would be better if we have one in person, but we may not have any choice at this point.
Can we take email submissions before the date? And
oh, sure. Yeah.
And it might be worth, if they're typewritten, you can paste them into the chat format so that everyone can see them, or you can post them ahead of time. But if people can get an email submission so that we can have like a document and a compilation beforehand, so that then people can react and respond and say, oh, hey, that's a great idea, let's do that. And then so that you actually get some response like you would in a real discussion. You know what I mean?
Where you're talking about doing it in person, versus on a Zoom meeting, and the Zoom meeting not probably being the most conducive. Just thinking way outside the box here, would it be possible to do it like on a Saturday in the high school parking lot?
The problem is the limitation on the 10-person gathering. That remains in effect right now. The only exemption is town meeting. And that's why we can hold a town meeting, because that's the exemption for a legislative body. I don't believe that we can convene under the state's health regulations a gathering even outside in a parking lot with more than 10 people under the current guidelines.
I think if Zoom is our choice, I think it can be done that way. And, you know, you have people get in line using the raise hand or the chat box. There's ways to implement that. Just have to know what you're doing before you start the meeting. So I don't, unless the town has some limited subscription, it's going to cap it at 50 people. I don't see a problem doing it on Zoom if that's what our choice is. I think submitting written comments ahead of time is fine. I just would also caution that I think there's a whole lot of value to be gained by listening to people speak and
Yes,
having a
there is.
dialogue. And I just wouldn't want to get down a rat hole of people trying to address their thoughts in writing when it could be done more efficiently and impactfully through the interactive dialogue, which is why we're having it in the first place.
Okay.
Those are my
So
thoughts.
do you want to shoot for that, the day, what'd you say, Paul, it was July
20th.
What was the date?
Yeah.
20th?
Monday, July 20th.
I agree with Paul. I think that doing it sooner is more important than waiting until we can do it in person.
That's still 5 weeks away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like,
is that
so
too far?
That's what I'm wondering.
if we changed the day, we could do it sooner, but if we're sticking to Monday nights between town meeting and our regular meetings,
It doesn't have to be a Monday.
We could either move a regular meeting and swap it out with that date, or we could do a different night.
I have no problem with a different night.
Me
I'd rather
neither.
do a different night and do it in the next 3 weeks than wait 5 weeks.
I would too.
Well, you really, you just got to deal with that 4th of July holiday week. That's sort of, you know, do you want to do it before the 4th or after the 4th? That's the challenge, I think. Yeah,
Well, Paul, do you want to email us tomorrow all doable nights, Monday through Thursday between now and
I think
July
any night.
20th?
I think any night's doable because you're using Zoom. We don't need a meeting space. It's whatever night works for either the board.
It's a matter of getting enough notice out to enough of the community that you get a representative group. So,
I mean, you could do Wednesday, July 1st as an easily identified date. It's, you know, 2 weeks from, just over 2 weeks from, you know, from tomorrow, if you think that's sufficient time. It's an easily.
I am putting it out there. My wife is having knee replacement July 1st. So,
oh no.
Yeah, there's a couple of day window in there where maybe a little tough for me. That doesn't mean you can't have the meeting. I just may not be able to, you know, run the meeting. I might have to be in and out as I'm helping her.
Well, around the 4th of July, it seems like a lot of people travel. Well, maybe they won't traveling this year. But what about like,
I think
what about
the
what,
weeks of
if
the
I could
20th
finish?
Sorry.
If I could, can I just finish? So what about like the day after our, you said July 13th we have a meeting, is that right? What about that next day, July 14th, that Tuesday?
That works.
That's fine.
Still
And that
a
would
week
give us
away.
a couple of meetings between now and then to get the word out some more and get some more publicity on it, but still not have it at the end of July. Or is that too late? Can you feel like that's still too late?
Or June 30th, if you wanted to do it Tuesday. But you got the vision and values that night, Virginia.
We can move it. I just didn't know if June 30th is coming up too quick from where we are right now to get the word out.
2 weeks.
I think July 14th is a good suggestion too. So whatever.
I'm leaving it up to you folks. Thoughts?
I mean, we're not gonna, getting the word out is how. We're not gonna do a mailing because it's the whole community. You know, I guess we could put some notice in the local press and the Independent, and then we would use social media in our website. So you know.
My only concern with anything the week of the 29th or the 6th is that July 4th, and most companies give holiday time either before the 4th or after when it falls on a weekend, and we don't know what that is. So I just feel like those 2 weeks are a little bit risky.
I mean,
Personally, it doesn't matter.
I have
So
no perspective on people who travel at any point in their lives right now. So I can't imagine at this point, like looking at folks I know who went and splurged on vacations this year, they're like, I can't even go to Maine because I got to quarantine for 2 weeks if I'm up there. And so I've got a week off. So what am I going to do? Take like an entire month to quarantine on 2 weeks, either on either side of a week? Like, I don't know who is actually traveling right now. But
Okay, why don't you just pick a date? You're the chairman.
I mean, I go into the point that I want to do it as soon as possible. So I think it's going to be at least 2 weeks to get the word out. So for me, I mean, we're right at that. As I would do it as soon as to June 30th as we can, as close to June 30th.
Then let's
And if we have to go early a couple of days, so what do you see on the schedule, Paul?
I think June 30th would be the date then.
And that's what day of the week is that? The
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah, I think that affords us enough time to get the word out, and doesn't. I think I agree with Virginia. I think people are going to go away either Friday. They're either going to have Friday or Monday off. So if we do that Tuesday, it's 2 days before they're either going to have the Friday or Monday off if they get the July 4th holiday off. If they go away for a long weekend, I think that's the day, the 30th. And I think we start immediately getting the word out that this is something the town's doing and embracing, to let them know we're taking action.
I think that's a good plan. I think this stuff is moving so quickly right now, and there is so much research already out there that I think just moving quickly and learning how to be nimble is a good idea. I think some of this is going to feed into vision and values. I think there's some overlap there.
It's going to feed into what?
It's into vision and values. I think some of that, this is that question that I think it feeds into a lot of that.
Well, I think our vision statement that you guys had worked up in those meetings included inclusivity in a bunch of these topics for the town. So
it did, and so this will help define that. And I think I think it's a worthwhile thing to do.
All right, so we'll shoot for that Tuesday the 30th.
All right.
Okay. Anything else on this topic before we move on to 8? Nothing in the chat room. Oh, just so I did get a note from Dan as we were discussing, we have a 100-person limit. We could upgrade to a 300-person limit with Zoom. And then we could also do breakout rooms if that was needed. But we do, at this time, the town has a 100-person limit on Zoom. So just so we're aware. All right, with that, Paul, I'll turn it over to you for your town manager reports.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be brief, given that we're into our third hour of the meeting. Just a couple of quick items that I wanted to just follow up on. The first one pertains to the economic recovery that we're in right now, and I just wanted to inform the board and the community that the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments is proposing a grant application to fund basically a recovery plan as a result of the economic impact from the COVID pandemic. They're seeking to submit an application for $150,000 in EDA funds, which a matching grant of $37,500 will be provided by NIMCOG for a total grant project of $187,500. The project timeframe would begin this September and probably run through next August. Again, they're going to work with all the major stakeholders in the Greater Lowell area to develop and identify this components of the economic injury and the creative solutions to address the issues and prepare for future impacts. So again, the whole idea is to provide technical assistance and capacity building for the communities, be a liaison between the state, local, and federal partners through targeted assistance, and facilitate the implementation of disaster recovery economic development projects. It's part of the recently developed economic development plan for the region, and also foster private and nonprofit partnership opportunities. I don't know if Pat is on NIMCOG, if you have anything further you want to add on this topic.
No, not at this time. I mean, we have a meeting this week and we'll be talking about it some more, I'm sure, but I don't know if any that covers it pretty well.
Great, thank you. The next item I have is just an update on the outdoor seating. It was touched upon earlier in this meeting. So again, I just wanted to, recognize like you said, the partnership and cooperation from all the inspectors and again, Christina Bruce from the, Selectmen Manager's Office in terms of coordinating with the turnaround. I mean, the regulations were sort of issued, real quickly in the green light from the state, wasn't but for 2 days before the release of the approval to do the outdoor seating. And again, the feedback's been very positive. Right now, the state has announced funding to assist with any type of infrastructure that's needed for the outdoor dining. And so DPW and Lisa and others are trying to determine are there any infrastructure projects that the town needs to undertake in order to continue to facilitate this outdoor dining economic activity. And then you may have heard today the statistics are still falling very favorable at the state level, and so we expect to hear either later this week or next week in terms of when the state would allow for indoor dining in combination. But clearly, the outdoor dining has been very popular, and again, we're doing everything we can to facilitate what's taking place out there right now. And then the last topic I have was on the project update on 255 Princeton Street, or more commonly known as the former UMass Lowell West Campus. I did receive an update today that I forwarded you by email, but just to let the community know that the project is moving along, however, slower than had been anticipated due to the permitting and state approvals. They're currently in the project of securing demolition permits and sign-offs from the various town departments and utilities. The work area prep and setup is basically complete, and DEP is expected to conduct its first site inspection on the site next Tuesday or Wednesday, provided they get these sign-offs. And then from there, they would then commence work with the debris removal, again, during the limited daytime hours from 8 to 5 p.m. And again, they will have a representative on site full-time monitoring contractor activities. And the security patrols are still active up there. So that's what's happening on UMass West Campus demolition. And that completes my report. I do have one appointment to the community.
Paul, before you leave your reports, I wonder if you could just update the community about, some people are probably expecting your pre-town meeting that you usually have. So if you could just say how you're doing that this year.
Yeah, I think a notice went out for the clerk's office at the end of last week. Again, normally before town meeting, we'd have a pre-town meeting at the North Town Hall the Wednesday prior and go over the articles and answer questions and provide information. Right now, everything's being done virtually. So what has transpired is John Souza, the finance director, and I taped a half-hour program last Friday at the Telemedia Studios at the Parker School. That link, I think, was sent out by the clerk in terms of a half-hour information session to cover the warrant articles. I think we did it justice. Again, especially where there's no zoning articles on the warrant, and there really isn't a lot of complexity in terms of the 27 warrant articles and the one special town meeting warrant article. So that program is available for viewing. Also, as I mentioned, the Finance Committee's warrant book is online at the town's website. And again, that link was sent out, and the budget book is online. And we're expecting the publications back from the printer probably within a couple of days. So if town meeting reps want to come by the town offices and the selectman manager's office to pick up copies, because I know some people like to have the hard document and don't want to print out or look at voluminous documents online. So we expect to have those by Wednesday of this week, again, which would be in keeping when we would traditionally disperse those materials. And then we're sending out on Wednesday, we're sending to the printers the town meeting presentation, so that when people arrive, the town meeting reps arrive at the town meeting next Monday evening, they will have available to them all copies of the PowerPoint presentation. So again, it's a big room. The setup is taking place right now in terms of the alignment of the room, sound system, voting system, chairs, and so forth, with the 6-foot distancing. I think the only concern we have right now is the weather, and the concern with the weather is the heat, because we will be in the gymnasium indoors, which obviously would protect us from thunderstorms or severe weather. But much like the senior center, when you put a group of people inside a facility, it can get warm. But aside from that, everything appears to be online, and available. And again, we're looking forward to town meeting next Monday evening.
Yeah, somebody called me and had a couple of questions about how it's going to run. I'm assuming you will be required to wear a mask.
Yes.
And what if somebody shows up without one? Will they be denied entry?
Yes, this is not. Yeah, yes, you have to wear a facial covering per the state guidelines. And the microphones, everything will be set up at different heights and so forth, so that everything should be touchless. So, and the social distancing, all those parameters will be required, again, in the interest of public health.
Okay. And in the packet that Trish sent out last week, and I want to thank her for sending that, there was a certificate, I guess, that the employees now must have to sign every day or whatever, stating that they haven't been in contact with somebody with COVID and that they're healthy. Is everybody going to have to fill out one of those that night, or should they print that off and bring it? And
No, there's no need. There's no need to print them and bring them off. I think they just wanted them to get the message out in continual form that you shouldn't arrive on any public area, including town meeting, if you have symptoms of COVID, such as fever, or have been in contact with somebody who's had it. And so I think that's the message they wanted to get out to everyone.
Okay.
And again, the state, and these are all in conformance with the state guidelines that were issued last week, the end of last week, regarding holding town meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Again, I have one appointment for confirmation this evening. It's the Community Action Program Committee. I'm seeking the appointment of Jim Callahan to the Community Action Program Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2021.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the town manager's appointment of Jim Callahan to the Community Action Program Committee for a 1-year term ending June 30th of 2021.
Second.
When motion is second, all in favor, we'll do it by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, so on to item 10, the liaison assignments. For the most part, there wasn't any turnover of the board, so I didn't really hear from anybody about their assignments. I'm going to assume that everybody's comfortable keeping the same assignments, if that is okay with everybody.
Yep. Yeah.
I had asked Virginia if she would switch with me for the legislative, so that I would take Mangle and she would take Golden. So she's going to take over the assignment for Golden, I assume. Is that all right with you, Virginia?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Other than that, we'll keep it all the same. Yes. All right. Item 11 on the agenda, Selectmen Liaison Reports and Referrals. We'll start off. Pat, do you have any updates for us?
I just have one thing I wanted to mention. Paul Grant, who passed away about a week ago. He was a longtime member of the Recycling Committee. He also served on Conservation Committee. You may recall that he was instrumental in the Solarized Chelmsford initiative that we had a few years ago, and he never met an environmental cause that he couldn't get behind and support just totally fully. And he was a really good guy. He was very productive as far as environmental projects in the town. So he is really going to be missed. Thank you.
Okay, Emily?
So this isn't a liaison, but it's more stuff in the community that has come up. I mentioned this to Paul, I just wanted to check in about it, but we could use signs addressing the need for masks and social distancing in Spanish and Khmer at the two beaches in town, at Hart Pond and at Barney. So I don't know whether or not you had a chance to look into that. I'm happy to translate the Spanish sign. I can't do anything with Khmer, but you know,
I did share that with Sue Rosa, who's the public health director. Those signs were put up by the Board of Health, and she's sort of trying to get a quote to what it would cost to replace all those signs with, either symbol signs or multiple language signs.
I can do the Spanish translation. And
right, it's not the issue of trying. It's getting the signs printed and
printed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think so. The thing I was seeing was folks were complaining about it, and because I live around the corner from Barney, I'm like, whatever, I'll just go look. And I saw family groups without masks, but kids are kids, and you know they run around and touch things and want to play with each other, and so the mask is needed, and so I didn't see egregious violations when I was there. I saw family groups, but it was clear that we need some multiple language signs. And then I'm still getting messages about pride flags, particularly on the CCA, which is really a place for the arts and a place for everybody. And there's some real pushback about last year's reactive policy about not flying flags on town-owned buildings again. We got such good news today out of the Supreme Court actually upholding human rights again. Because people keep trying to bring it up and squash human rights, but the Supreme Court actually held up human rights today. And so I think that makes June 2020 just a little bit better than it had been. But I think it would be nice to allow at least the CCA to fly the flags if we're not willing to take a stand and fly them on all town-owned flagged poles.
All right, any comments from anybody else? I'm still sort of at the same spot I was last year, and
oh my.
Yeah, I'm still in the same place.
I agree. I'm still at the same place. Any church, any residents can fly them, and I like seeing them around town. But I think I agree with maintaining our policy.
okay. Emily, anything else?
It sounds like, can I mention the Eagle Scout project because it's so cool?
Sure. Yep.
So this lovely young man named James Barrett stopped by my house in my neighborhood the other day for a McCabe community garden. The McKay Library has a raised bed there, but it's very wide, and you have to climb up on it and walk through some stone pavers to get to the middle, and it's difficult and it's not accessible. And so what James is planning is 4 separate raised beds that will give a similar planting area and have a wide enough space in between them to get a wheelbarrow or a wheelchair through. And that would also be at an appropriate height for somebody in a wheelchair who wanted to participate in community garden projects there. This neighborhood's pretty active, and it tends to maintain things that are put down, and like people go and water the seasonal flowers at the library when the library is closed. So this would just rebuild that project, and it sounds like he's been super successful and has gotten a really good response so far, and might even be planning something bigger, because he was going to put some properly anchored benches down for a seating area. He has a really lovely plan, and it's very well thought out. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that, and any other scouts for Gold Star projects or other Eagle Scout projects. I would encourage you to send those to us, and let us broadcast those out for you too, just because they are wonderful community projects, and they're so thoughtfully done and planned, and I think folks would like to be more involved. So
Yeah, I'm glad that Emily, you sent them my way, because we talked for, I don't know, probably 20 minutes on the phone, and I didn't see what he was doing, but he explained it to me in great detail. And when we were going through the list of materials he needed, there were different places in town I pointed him to get sourcing for free material. So when you hear about Eagle Scouts are doing projects like that, I think the more different people you involve in this, there's more resources, people that are willing to really just, give to see the success of these Eagle Scouts. These projects they do are a huge benefit to the town, and usually they're amazing when they're finished. So, you're all set then?
Yeah.
Okay. George, any liaison report from you?
No, I think we covered everything I wanted to talk about tonight.
Okay. Virginia?
From the Conservation Commission, just a reminder, on Tuesday, June 23rd, their meeting will include a review of the 3 candidate open space park properties, specifically Warren Pole Farm, Misty Meadows, and Pine Hill Road. From the Planning Board, on June 24th, they will open public hearings for the Groton Road duplex development and for the Fisk Oddfellows campus redevelopment, as well as continuing the public hearing for the UPS parking lot expansion. And they are also planning on opening a public hearing on July 8th for the historic preservation bylaw. And all the documents for those hearings can be found on the town website. From the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee, just a note from DPW, the tennis and pickleball court installation is expected to begin this week, and they'll look at parking issues after that.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
I think everything that was touched on and that George was touched on, so I'm good there. We'll go to press questions. Is there any press who wants I don't see anything coming up in the chat box. So there's nothing there. With that, we go to executive session. Do we get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session, for the purpose of considering the value of real property at 20 and 22 Watton Street.
Second.
We have a motion second. We'll do all in favor by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. All right, so give me 1 second and I will.
You're the boss now. You get the whole thing.
And then Pete, are you there? All right, he's gone. I need you to get rid of the telemeter 2, Pete. And he left, so he's gone.